Broadcasting to you live from the LoadingReadyRun underground orbiting moon base, it's the LRRcast.
It's a LRRcast again. Exciting. The four of us again. This is not, of course, Anime Roundup for us. I'm Beej.
I am Heather.
I'm Cori.
And I'm Ian.
Instead, it was brought to our attention that everyone's kind of had their origin story told. Mm-hmm. And we haven't. We've been showing up. We've been doing all sorts of stuff. We've been here for years. There's been but nobody knows where we came from and what we've been doing. And so Paul specifically had said, "Hey, why don't you do a thing on how the hell you ended up here in the first place?
How did we get to now?"
Yeah, how to get to now. And really, it all began because I used to sell CDs.
Well, for you, it began because you used to sell CDs.
Bootleg CDs from Taiwan.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we can probably accelerate pretty quickly over the prehistory, but
Yeah.
Beej and I used to go to the University of Alberta. And even before we both went to the University of Alberta, Beej went to the University of Alberta
Yeah.
and was in the anime club.
Yeah.
And I went to the anime club when I was in high school. And I thought, wow, I need to get some music because there's some awesome anime that I'm watching right now, like Escaflowne and Cowboy Bebop, and I need the songs from this.
Yeah.
How do I get this? And they said, you should talk to this wacky guy at the front.
Yeah.
I thought,
well, you ended up I swear you ended up emailing me.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you went to the.
So I lived
so the
20
internet
minutes,
did exist.
I lived 20 minutes out of town in the country.
Yeah, and so you went to my website.
Yep.
And you emailed me, and we got a whole order together for you. And then you said, "Oh well, but I live in Edmonton." I'm like, "Oh well, I live in St. Albert." It's like, great. So you came by my house to pick up your CDs because I'm like, why mail them to you? Why don't you just? Because I didn't know we were going to the same club even.
It'll be cheaper shipping that way, and of course I go drive to his house.
Yeah, beautiful house.
Yep, knock on the door, and I couldn't turn my car off because my parents' car had this problem with the alternator where I could start it,
Yeah.
but I couldn't stop it.
Right.
And if it did, it wouldn't go back on again. It would need a boost.
Big like marquee, whatever the hell it
Yeah,
was.
that doesn't matter.
I know.
what
No.
kind of car it was. It was
Running
my
in the
mother's
driveway.
car.
Not necessary information.
Faster
And,
through
knock
time.
on the door, and I'm expecting, like, it's an anime club, so it's full of these big, fat, smelly guys, bald guys, and
Yeah.
this big, burly guy with balding hair comes to the door, and I say, "Hello, I'm Ian, and I'm here to buy some CDs from
You're like
you."
18 years old.
Yeah, I'm 18 years old, and I don't know what you look like.
Yeah.
And the guy comes to the door and says, "Beej,
Yep.
someone here to see you."
You do my dad like damn near perfectly.
Yeah.
And
That's
so
right,
I come
because I
running
asked
up
for
and-
Brendan, that's
Yeah.
right.
And so my dad yells, "Beej, you've got a customer." And so I'm like, okay. And so I come up the stairs and see Ian, and I think we had confirmed that we were going to do this. I'm like, right, yeah, hang on. And I go and I get your stuff. I bring it upstairs. Transaction done and whatever. And it wasn't like several weeks later, because there was a break in the anime club, that we actually did run into each other at the anime club for real finally. And it was like, oh, cool. And then a few weeks passed past that, and we were near the office. And I came in and you were sitting down with the CD player, and you beckoned me over and said, "You have to come listen to this."
Because I knew he was into good music, being the guy. And I just discovered this show called Cowboy Bebop.
So I sat down, he put the thing in my ear, and Tank starts up, and then Ian and I have been best friends ever since.
Yes.
Huh. You miss out a lot of people who are in the anime club with you, don't
Yeah,
you? You're a
essentially.
ghost,
Yeah,
aren't you?
I tend to be.
Yeah.
I mean, the anime clubs have kind of been the formative experience for a lot, because when I ended up moving to Grand Prairie, I decided that because we didn't have an anime club in Grand Prairie, I thought I need a good way to meet women. And the best way to do that is to find women who are interested in stuff that I'm interested in. So I started the Grand Prairie Anime Club out of Grand Prairie Regional College, which is where I was working.
Yeah.
And after like a couple of years of that, you showed up.
Were you going for that long? I have no idea. I was in high school when I went the first time.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
And I
Of course,
didn't.
I was employed by the college, so I'd already been out of university.
I did not see you ever. I did not. I went to Anime Evolution that 1 year with some friends, and my friend was like, "Oh, that guy runs our anime club." I'm like, no,
we
he
should
doesn't.
back up here because we're starting to get a little bit cross timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's one
we-
thing you have to do first.
Because you mentioned that you'd seen him at Anime Evolution.
Right.
Why did we
even go to Anime Evolution?
Why did we go to Anime Evolution? We hate anime. No. While we were at the university, let's fast forward a few years. We get involved with the anime club in university. We become
Vice presidents
and start working at the local anime convention, Animathon in Edmonton. And while there, one of our friends comes up to us and says, "Hey," in the staff room during the convention, "Hey guys, you and Beej are funny. You want to come do like a Whose Line Is It Anyway thing, but with anime?"
We're like, okay, whatever
Sure, what
that's
the
going to be
hell?
like, sure,
Yeah.
why not? And well, yeah, and that was the thing is that Mark had come and asked us this because he would see us. He was like a president of the anime club at one point, and so he would see us at the front of the room screwing around when the club was opening.
Doing announcements.
Yeah, we would do announcements, but we basically cribbing a whole bunch of shit from Mystery Science Theater 3000 and making jokes and like being just rude and funny and singing songs and doing whatever. And so that's why he'd said, "Do you want to come do this?" And we're like, okay. And so we went downstairs to one of the rooms. He kind of gave us a run through of how some of the games work. And then we had a crowd. People showed up because they like got written on the board. It's like, come watch this. And so we just loosely did an improv show for 60 minutes.
We just picked some games that we knew from Whose Line that we understood and figured, yeah, we can do this.
We even
We did.
We even ended up doing that. It was a redubbing panel.
Yes.
Yeah, we did a redubbing panel with some guys from Calgary, and then
Amateur anime dubbing.
yeah, and we just redubbed like Escaflowne and Macross 2, and Dan Ross was there. He was also a member of SCT with us, and you've seen him in some stuff at Loading Ready Run, and so he did some voices as well. And that's what kind of I think we did that the year before, and that's why
Yes.
Mark ended up saying, "Come do this thing for us this year,"
Yep.
and so we did.
We just kept doing improv at the Edmonton conventions, and then Mark, the guy who put us all together, he started shopping us around to other conventions in the area. So
then
the
decided-
Calgary Anime Convention, and then we got Vancouver Anime Evolution.
And he decided if that was going to happen, we needed a name.
Yeah.
And so we became the 404s. And so if you've ever seen the 404s at a convention or you've seen that online or whatever, that was us. We were all founding people
At the time,
in that when that 404s got running. We were the first ones out of that group.
404, for those not already aware, standing for the 404 page not found HTML error code.
Yeah. So
Comedy not found.
that was originally that was just a thing.
You're
that
doing
Dan
it without
threw out.
script.
Well, that was the thing is
Yeah.
that Dan threw that out as an idea. It's like, why don't we just call ourselves the 404s? He's like, I don't know. And then Mark was like, oh, that's brilliant. We'll use that. And Dan was like, we didn't even have time to actually pick like a funny name.
I
We just
wanted
did-
402, payment required.
Yeah, sir.
503,
Four-
bad gateway.
Bad gateway.
Anyway,
All right, but then you were at Anime Evolution.
Right, and so we were doing shows, and we were there with Anime Alberta, and Anime Alberta was a local group of the anime clubs in the area as well. And we went to Anime Evolution to do a show and also like meet with the guests and do all that kind of stuff as well.
I'm trying to segue
So-
because that information's not that relevant.
we
I
did
think it's interesting.
we did this for a while.
Yeah, we did it for several years.
And we were really good at it. And then you decided, I'm going to go move to Grand Prairie.
Well, I hadn't done that yet.
You hadn't been doing it. Like how many years had you been doing it by the time you moved to Grand Prairie?
3 or 4, longer than that.
Yeah,
All through university practically.
And at that point, I also decided I'm going to leave Edmonton as well.
You went to Japan.
And go to
No,
Japan.
but I met you before you went to Japan.
This was the year before I moved up to Grand Prairie.
Yes.
Then I think. Yeah.
Yeah, we met once.
We met once before.
Timeline's
so,
a little hard to keep straight because
So
there's so many people.
I met
involved.
you. I met you because you were at Anime Evolution.
Yes.
And my friend was with me and was like, "That guy runs our anime club in Grand Prairie." And like, no, he doesn't. And we had to go talk to you.
So then I was
apparently.
already in Grand Prairie then. Yeah.
And I was like, "Nobody runs our anime club."
because
There's a ghost. There is a ghost that sets up the anime. We go and we watch it, and then we leave, and the ghost goes away because you sat near the front,
In
didn't
your fold-out
interact
chair.
with
Yep.
anybody. Mister, I made a club to meet women.
Sometimes he put his hand up
I brought a
to stop the talking.
I brought
Oh,
a
yes.
fold-out lounge chair. Thank you very much.
That was a
And
camping chair.
Came in, yeah, and
Yeah.
big camping chair that folds out, made of canvas.
Yeah.
And I would put my feet
You'd
up. and
show
I'd
up
get in the chair.
late,
So,
with food.
I get,
Yeah.
I get that your idea to start this club was, hey, I should get women who have similar interests to me to show up, but not talking to anybody doesn't get you anywhere.
I don't know. I got married.
Eventually,
So 2 years of you in Grand Prairie,
Yeah.
running an anime club. Me in Japan, we still, Beej and I, in contact
Because of
we're doing a podcast
Yes.
called Diecast, which is
I-
about Japan and Japanese pop culture that's over.
I do want to talk about the first time I met you, Ian, though.
Okay.
Because I met you at AnimeThon. I had a video camera because I was taking filming in school,
you didn't have your beard then.
and I was super excited to have this camera, and so I was like, oh well, I'll go watch the 404s because I kind of know about them. They're funny, and I'll videotape it because I want to film things and do stuff. And then after your show was done, because this was the last show you did before you went to Japan, I was filming people talking to you, and you were like, "Oh, I will take that camera from you so you can be on the film." And I was like, "No, I don't want to be on the camera. Also, why is that guy taking my camera, the one that I think is funny? I don't want to talk to him, and he is talking to me, and now he has taken away my device that keeps me separated."
I'm pretty sure that she thought you were funnier than I was too.
No, I
That's
liked him
true.
before you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've established this, and I hold
And
that
then
dear.
It's not hard to believe.
Then he went to Japan, and then I was like, "Well, I'll take the other funny one."
Yeah, that's
That's
fine.
not what happened.
Exactly.
Sorry, just to quickly break in here
Yes.
from the control room. Does this mean that there's video of very early improv with
Oh,
Ian,
yes.
Ian
Christ, I
with
hope
Ian
not.
with no beard?
Yes, I
Yes,
think
there
I still
is.
have
Yeah.
all of that footage actually.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere.
Some of it's online. I've seen
Intriguing.
it.
Yeah, some of it is
Intriguing.
online.
Of beardless Ian.
I still look exactly the same and weigh exactly the same.
Yep.
I have Dick Clark disease.
We'll leave finding that an exercise to the viewer. So, yeah, I guess we can slow it down here a bit now.
Because you went to Japan.
Actually, in some of your diecast videos that you put up, you don't have a beard.
Yes,
Yes.
you can
Yeah.
find those
Because
on.
you grew that in Japan.
Yeah.
Yes.
You came back with the beard, and I thought it looked really weird to see you with a beard.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
it was interesting because we came back. I came back from Japan
Yeah.
and had no idea what I was going to be doing, and then moved in with you
Yeah.
in your.
So I'm gonna get like in between that time. I'm running GPAC up in Grand Prairie, and
G-Pack.
GPAC.
G-Pack.
And so
We thought it was super
it
cool.
it became more of a thing where during certain shows, because now I'm starting to see the same people over and over. We're having like about 30 people or 20 people or whatever show up like on the reg.
We had 50 people at one point. I was super proud of us.
Yeah, and it's-
over half of them were girls.
And I did very little advertising, and that was very important, right? It's because it's like a lot of anime clubs tended to be almost all men, so to have a lot of women was a really good thing. But I think that was after I left.
Yeah.
Especially that when your goal.
So, I know, right? So what happened was, it started to become more of a thing where I would interact with more people there, and then also let them in on the fact that, well, I also go to these events, and and some of your, like Nicole knew that I was in the 404s, I think,
Yeah,
and she was
that's why
telling
We
me
Like,
could
I
we
got
could probably
dragged
bring
into
up
a lot of
Nicole at
that.
this point
Yeah.
because that was my in.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that she
That's how I knew Cori.
Yeah, and like when I started high school, for some reason I ended up friends with the 12th graders, and Nicole was one of those people. Although we
Ah.
did have a French class together.
Okay. Okay.
And she dragged me off to anime club and
Yeah, which is how I know
introduced us
you.
eventually
Well,
because
and that's how Cori
Phil,
ended
Phil
up
I
meeting
think, was
you.
running stuff mostly at that
Yeah.
point.
And I kind of had this standing thing that it was like I didn't want to have high schoolers come out. Like I was like I'm okay with it in the beginning, but as more and more high schoolers started coming to the clubs, I was kind of like I'm not fond of this, but I'm not going to put the brakes on it just yet.
Yeah.
Because I knew at one point Baka, the club in Edmonton,
We'd gone
had
through
to
the same thing.
put the brakes on because they're like
Yeah.
there was too many 16-year-olds and 15-year-olds showing up, and they're gathering in the hallway and they're having like a great time, but they're not going in and watching anything, and they're just basically being a disturbance to everybody
Yes,
else.
see, the only problem we had when we put in eventually a 16 plus rule because we had 14-year-olds and 12-year-olds who were starting to show up,
Yep.
who were making a ruckus around the college, and we didn't want to get shut down.
Yeah, see, so it eventually happens to everybody.
They were not happy with us, but they started their own club, so
But because I was working for Animathon as the director of public relations and also as the vice chairman for a while, there was also this thing of because I was doing work and I started dragging you guys in to do work. Did you ever end up doing some work with us to like PR wise?
I did.
Heather did.
I did
Heidi
faxing
did.
and
Nicole
stuff.
did. Yeah,
Yeah,
And do
'cause-
squat.
Yeah,
yeah. So I probably not at that time didn't pull you in at that point, but
I think that was earlier.
yeah,
Yeah.
So,
No, I went out for like dinner with you.
yeah, we'd go out for dinner a lot, and
To-
it was
for
always the same
Japanese.
like 6 or 8 of us
Yeah.
or whatever. Yeah.
Can we please explain why there are 3 Beeges on this podcast?
So when I formed the club, we had president, vice president, external, vice president, internal,
Treasurer, secretary.
secretary.
There were
but you
6
had to- But you had to have
positions.
6 positions.
So there was
and
the
they didn't care what you called them. So the 6th position was fool,
yes.
and fool was just supposed to be the 6th position. It was supposed to be a member at large, and it was just like we'll just give that to anybody, and it was just all signatures. Just get them from random people, just so I can have a club. But when we actually came around to doing elections and stuff, that became different. It was like, and I had rules. It's like you have to serve as one of these roles before you can become president as well. So when we got everybody to,
Those rules existed?
yeah,
I don't remember any of
But
those.
I
what
don't
ended up
remember those
happening, what ended up happening was I wrote a whole constitution. Everything was like 9
Oh,
pages
we
long.
tried to read through it and
It was boring.
skin some of
I
it out. It
realized.
didn't work.
One of the things that came about is that everyone started calling the president the Beej.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and then everyone started calling the fool Phil.
Yep.
who was a
No,
good friend
no,
of
the
yours.
vice president.
Oh, the vice president was Phil.
Yep.
Because Beej and Phil was my friend who I made when I moved to Grand Prairie. He worked at the college as well in the accounting area. And he came out, not because he knew anything about anime really, but he was like, oh, this seems interesting. You like some cool stuff. So he came out to do that as well, to just kind of enjoy this with me. And yeah, so that kind of became, everyone started to blame Phil for things going wrong, even when Phil wasn't there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was supposed to be a funny in joke. It was a poke fun at Phil because he did something that went wrong like twice
Yeah.
or something, and then after that, everything was Phil's
It
fault.
was always Phil's fault. But that meant that the president was Beej, which meant that the president after that, after I left, the new president was also then Beej.
Oh,
which
we
was
took
you.
it further than that because Heidi was vice president and we called her Phil.
Ah.
And we also blamed her if anything went wrong
Lovely.
because that was the position. And the thing that you were talking about with the fool and elections,
Yeah.
we had one of those with not your rules because I don't think we actually read that.
Nope.
There was a
constitution that
hat.
far.
That's good.
There was a hat for the fool. The only position anyone fought over was the fool's position.
Makes sense to me. That's an anime club.
But then, yeah,
So after you were
you
Beej.
left and I was Beej and I ran and I was a college student as well, so I was like allowed to run that.
Yes.
And then I was going to be done college. I
And
gave it
joined
over
the
to Cori.
college and became president. I think Heidi was still vice president.
Yeah, because she was in school a little longer than I
Yeah,
was.
she was still in my same program. And then I left to go to university, and there was no one
To take over.
after I.
The final Beej.
The final Beej.
This is the final form of Beej.
Yeah.
Yeah. So someone eventually did restart the club.
Yeah.
And I went there like years later, and my phone number was still
Oh no.
the phone number for the club, but I think I only ever got one call from the new president.
We still technically have access to all the money that we raised because we paid membership fees, and that all went to
I
Phil.
never did. I never had any access to that.
Yeah, I know.
No,
But
because Phil was in
Phil
charge
had
of it.
that all,
Yep.
and the thing is that it was all supposed to be basically passed down through everybody else, but because nobody ever went to Phil, I guess, to get the money from him, he has a separate account that just has his money that's
Yep.
sitting in it, of like $500 or $800 or whatever. And we have talked to Phil several times and said, "What do you want to do with this money?" And he's like, "Well, it should go to furthering this cause of like Japanese culture. Maybe we should give it to the high school. Maybe we should give it and it was what we did agree on is don't give it to the new president of whatever new club this is, because apparently he didn't know how to do jack shit, and he would probably just spend it on DVDs for himself.
That's what we've heard.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So,
So that's it. I left Grand Prairie. She took over, and then you took over, and I'm living in Edmonton at this point.
Yep.
And then you came back from Japan.
yes. And had you met Heather at this point?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and you two were dating at this point.
Nope.
No, we were exchanging emails because he'd left. I was in charge of the club, and I wanted to talk to him more, but I didn't actually want to come off as trying to. I was awkward. I didn't
Yeah.
want to come off as like I didn't want him to know that that I liked him. So I wrote him emails to be like, "Hey, so we're doing this thing in club. Do you have any advice, perhaps?" And we exchanged
Yeah.
emails like
we
that.
did start dating by the time you had come back from Japan, but
Yes.
I'd already been living in Edmonton for like over a year by that point, or
just-
whatever.
Yeah, I
So-
wanted to make the timeline quick because you were living in Edmonton.
yeah.
And I came back to Edmonton because I didn't have a place to live or a job coming back from Japan.
Yeah.
Get home and say, oh, I'll live with my family for a bit while I find a job. And they say, great, that sounds good. We're leaving down to Lethbridge. I'm like, I can't go to Lethbridge. It's Lethbridge, Alberta.
It's mostly a student town.
This is a
places.
terrible idea. I
Yeah.
need to stay in Edmonton, so I need to find a job quick. And, well, I guess I'll just live with Beej.
And so what happened was that I lost my job.
I was living in Edmonton at this point.
And we were dating by this point, but I lost my job. I was looking to sell my condo because I was looking to buy a house so that Heather and Heidi, your roommate, could move in with me, and that we could all basically, like, I could live with my girlfriend, and then also we could be putting money into the mortgage, and I could be building up, equity in a house. But
Yeah.
then I lost my job, and I got handed 2 really big sacks of cash when I left. And so I put that away, and then I sold my house and made over $100,000 on the sale of of what I owned, because there was a real estate boom there.
Yeah, you got lucky with that.
So now all of a sudden I had a fuck ton of money to live on and no job. And so we said, hey, why don't we rent a 4-bedroom house? Because Ian just comes back.
Yep.
And we all said, yeah, for 9 months we'll do this. It's enough time for Ian to get a job, establish a working relationship here at home, and then be able to save up the money that you need so you can buy your own place.
Yep.
And that's what happened.
No, it worked really well. In that meantime, we'd actually gone down and
Done more cons.
we'd done more cons. We did a con in Calgary, which was my first con after getting back.
Yeah, Odafest.
Which is when we met.
That's
Yes.
when I saw this beautiful girl across the way in one of the
That
rooms
is
after a show.
Corey, it was so cute.
We were
So-
sitting watching an extremely violent samurai anime because Jason Marker was showing me this thing, and
Sure.
then Ian comes in and was talking.
And it's weird because we knew you like
Yeah.
in Grand Prairie, like there's that relationship there. The fact is we had nothing to do with the two of you meeting
No,
each other.
not even
no,
a
no.
little.
Not even a little.
We-
No.
They met each other separately, but Ian did have this great conversation where he asked us about you.
And you guys forgot that I had a boyfriend.
I didn't even know you had a boyfriend. Let's be
I
fair.
met
He
him
went to
twice and
the
I forgot.
club.
Yeah, I didn't. I couldn't even tell you what his name was.
I formally met him twice and I did not remember him at all.
Yeah. So clearly you had to break up with him because he makes no impression on people.
So let's set your stage here a little bit. Where were you at this point?
I was living in Grand Prairie running the anime club, and I had come down to Odafest because Odafest is awesome.
Yup.
And I was living in residence at the college, and my mother had just moved to Edmonton, and so later I moved in with her when I transferred down.
But that was a good almost a year of me making trips up to Grand Prairie every month to come see you.
wasn't every month,
Pretty much close to.
close to every month.
Yeah.
Yeah. For about 8 months of our relationship.
Nice.
A lot of Skype.
I only
Oh,
did that the
okay.
one time.
Yeah, Beej came and saw me on
You're the
Valentine's Day
worst.
once.
I know, right?
He crushed the flowers
On
for me and
Valentine's Day, I
everything.
crushed all my flowers with ginger ale.
Oh yeah.
He is
The
super
worst.
romantic.
That
Yeah.
sounds like
And
a
then I
big
did a
thing to
die
do.
cast.
And it's
Yeah.
like, in the meantime, like I rented a house with friends, and I got a job making video games, and all of this magical things happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in that time, you watched your first Desert Bus around that time too, I believe.
The year after,
Yes.
because that was in college. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you had been watching Desert Bus 1 year longer than I had.
Yeah.
So, at this point,
So this was 2008.
yes, this is just before we changed the name of improv groups.
Yeah, we started helping out more within the improv you were doing
Yes.
as well
Yeah.
at that time.
Yeah.
Because we were going to the shows and we just started doing things.
Yeah,
And I started hosting one of the panels.
Yeah, and so we go to Anime Evolution. Probably the last
2010, was it?
the
Yeah, I
last
think it was 2010.
year that it was
Before
held before it rebooted itself.
Mhm.
Back in the big convention center in Vancouver.
That was the second last year before
Yes.
they rebooted. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and just before this, I remember showing Beej. We during our improv shows, we'd often get funny guests that we liked, like some of
Yeah,
Beej's-
Mike Dobson would
Mike
show
Dobson
up, and Brian
or
Dobson.
Jam,
and-
your favorite webcomic
Yeah,
artist at
Jam.
the time. Whoever we could get, we'd stunt cast. We'd get people into hopefully combined fan bases. And so I'd been following this troupe called LoadingReadyRun that had put out some pretty funny videos at that point.
Yeah, the
On
first
the
one-
internet.
The first thing I'd
Yeah.
ever seen from Lur was Skeletor's dick. That's the first thing Ian showed me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was
Nice.
blown away. I'm like, okay, this is pretty funny. It's really weird, but it is very
Yeah.
funny. Is that
Actually,
what these guys do?
Actually, probably was the second, because I think the first thing I showed everyone was shake your hands.
Shake
Oh,
hands
yeah.
with danger.
Yeah, shake hands with danger.
yeah,
which
yeah.
is not a Lur thing so much as it's just a
Graham
Graham
thing.
thing.
a
Yeah.
project that Graham did, yeah. That was good, though.
I always
But yeah,
forget
so
that they did the Skeletor thing.
we
Always.
I introduced you guys to this group, and I think, well, you know what? They're from Victoria. We should see if they're going to the con, and see if they're interested in getting up on stage with us, because they do funny things, right?
Yeah, and my response was, what makes you think that these guys who do sketch comedy are going to be any good at improv at all?
Or want to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
or want to is the big thing.
Because I was like, I can't for a minute believe that somebody who like does sketch comedy would be able to bring that over to improv, because they're both funny, but they need there's two different muscles at play.
And of course, my response at that point was the same as it all is every time. Well, fine, then what does any other guest that we bring up on stage have to have that could
mean,
possibly mean that they're good at improv?
It's like a captive
It's
fan
true.
base at the convention.
So I said, fine,
I was not convinced.
I'll email them and see if they're interested. We can meet with them and do a quick practice and see if it works.
Yeah. And so out of everybody who came to Anime Evolution that weekend from Lur, Graham was the only one who said, I will step up and do this, I believe.
Yep.
Yep.
And so I'm like, okay, so we're going to meet this guy. It's like, I said, I want to see him at a practice.
Yes.
Because if he's no good, I don't want him up on stage. Or at least I want to be able to limit the amount of stuff that he's going to be doing on
Exactly. 'Cause
stage.
we have no idea.
Right. And I mean, we were stunt casting Jam as well, but it was during the late show, and I was kind of like, well, she says she's also done 2 years of improv, so I'm
Yeah.
fine. Graham has apparently not, or he's done like some stuff on like a stage.
We didn't
wherever.
know.
We didn't know anything.
No.
Graham shows up, and he's good.
Well, it was. I love telling this story because if you know the way that the convention center in Vancouver works, there are these huge escalators.
Yeah.
And we ran into Graham, and Paul was there as well. He was going down one of them. I was going up the other with you guys.
Yeah.
And we recognize each other, and oh yeah.
And then they shake hands.
We shake hands
and
on
then
the
they
opposite sides
both
of the elevator.
start walking backwards on the escalators so that they can continue their conversation.
Oh, that sounds like a great visual.
So at this point, we're still the 404s.
Yeah.
I'm doing hosting that weekend because Mark could not make it because they were off doing another show on the East Coast.
Right.
But we have
with the East Coast crew.
We have the practice session.
Yeah.
It's in this glass cube of a room.
Yep.
We're inside. Graham and Paul show up outside. And the first thing Graham does is walk up to the glass, stick his hand on the glass and says, I have and forever will be your friend.
Yeah. It's kind of like, okay.
Okay, I think we can work with these people.
And he was good. He did very well in
Yep.
the practice, and we did the show, and he did very well in the show, and I was like, this is good. For somebody who
Neither
was
Ian nor Graham knew what a steeplejack was.
Yes,
yeah, that
that's
was
true.
pretty funny.
And it was just kind of one of those things where it was like, this worked out pretty good. And so we all went, but we didn't get to hang out with them that weekend.
No.
No.
It was all very
So
well and good. We'll see you
what's-
again in the future.
So this was before the.
So this must have been 2009, and then 2010 was the year that we hung out with them.
Yeah.
The show was
Yeah.
so good that weekend that we killed the improv group.
Yeah, no,
No,
not yet.
That's,
not yet.
that's not what happened.
We ended up doing a
Because I recall the thing where Ian didn't want us to talk to Lur
We'll
at
get to
breakfast.
that. We'll
Was
get to
that
that.
later?
yeah.
Yeah, that was, I think, the year after.
Yes,
That
but,
was still. I can't remember if we were SCT at that point or if we were still
No,
404s.
we
Well,
were. I think we were still
after
404s.
that winter was the first
I don't think we
winter.
went to AES SCT before that.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't we go as SCT just before they? We did the show in the
It's
gym.
hard to remember.
Because we did Cause and Effect after SCT
Yeah.
formed. And then
So,
Well,
what we
confused.
do know that happens, there is a story of where us as an improv team show up to AE, which is being held at University of British Columbia, and they have everybody stays in the student residences, and there's these great big six-bedroom room, so it has 6 single bedroom beds off of a single room essentially, and Lur got to stay in one of those as well, as did we, and we ended up hanging out with them and chatting with them, and there's lots of drinking going on. So I got to talk to Kathleen for the first time ever.
That's right. We had a co-autograph signing that basically no one showed up to.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
awesome.
because it was all the way on the other side of the campus
Yeah,
for
it's
one
like,
thing
who's gonna
too.
show up? And so it was just kind of like this didn't. But this is cool. We got to hang out a bit. We've had other things where
we
after
were-
we formed SCT and they went to the Calgary Comic Con. They came to Dan's house and we had the
barbecue.
SCT LRR BBQ.
WTF BBQ.
Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. And we had a big barbecue with them once, and we did that a second time. And that was kind of awkward because it was like we don't really all know each other.
Yeah, we hadn't really.
There was like another,
melded yet.
but we got to know each other a bit better over the time. There was a dinner where I met Alex for the first time.
I think that was the same.
That
Anime
was
Evolution.
AE. That was the guest dinner.
Yeah,
That's right.
Because you and Alex he was stealing your hat, your Canada hat.
We were sitting out for dinner, and Alex is like sitting there, and we all joined at a table, and he's sitting at this table and he's at the head of the table. So I sit
They were
down.
round.
I don't really have much to say to him, and then he pulls out a deck of cards. This is when he was still doing sleight of hand, and he started just doing like practice.
That was the dinner where I got to where Matt became the replacement Ian.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, and I started talking to Tally.
And as Alex was doing card tricks, I was like, no, keep going. And he's like, oh, and he keeps showing me more. I'm like, that's amazing. He's like, well, it's this many years of practice. We just started chatting, and we had a great time. And because I love card tricks, so I'm just enjoying watching him just be very intricate with these things. But yeah, we kept kind of pushing this thing of let's get together and let's meet with each other and let's do this kind of stuff. So at a certain point, when we were living in Olds, due to what I think is some very unfair shit that went down in the
well,
No.
404s.
Didn't you go to Desert Bus first before this happened? Was this after?
What just happened after that first group together? Was that when I watched my first Desert Bus. I think it was 3 at that time.
Yes.
And Corey told me, hey, you should watch this funny thing called Desert Bus. And I thought, well, Desert Bus, that sounds kind of weird. What is it, a charity event? Oh, it's put on by Loading Ready Run. You like those guys. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
So we should watch that. And I'm watching along, and I start submitting some stuff. And it's a good time for all involved.
Absolutely.
Really good year for that.
And
And
then-
that was my first introduction to Desert Bus.
Right.
And so then we get to the point where you moved down to Olds from Edmonton. I've moved into my new place in Edmonton. All is pretty good for a while. We're still doing shows around. We've done some shows in Seattle. We've gone to Toronto as the 404s.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And then we just
Planning was starting again to go to Anime North again. And as I said, some pretty unfair shit went down in the 404s, and it made some people upset. And a lot of things came out during that time that I ended up being extremely uncomfortable with. To the point where I was livid, and I'd said, "I'm done. I can't be a part of this anymore because of," and it didn't even affect me, but the fact that it affected other people within the troupe, I was like, I can't be in this because I don't trust what's going on here anymore.
that was the problem. It was like, here's a thing I'm uncomfortable with. Also, how many other things do I not know about, and will these be things that affect me later that I
So-
don't want to be a part of?
a lot of the members of the troupe, who you know, Beej, myself, Dan, Will Wood,
Corey,
and Corey, and
me.
Heather.
I mean, we weren't
Oh,
official members.
No,
of,
we weren't members. What
Yeah.
are you talking
We
about?
We weren't.
Yeah.
We worked.
Yeah.
Part of the
We
big
did
problem.
stuff.
No.
As far as I'm concerned,
Yeah, so
we
And Aaron
did
and
stuff.
Ryan.
broke off and formed a new troupe instead of going to Anime North.
Yeah, and there was some growing pains involved with that as well. But we basically said, we're leaving. And it's like, but a lot of us want to do improv. It's like, well, fuck it, we can do improv on our own if we want to, but we're leaving first things first. And so we submitted our resignation from the troupe. We said, enough's enough. No more of this bullshit. We left, and then we started talking. Okay, so what are we going to do for a new troupe? And so we came up with an idea. We came up with lots of different names. Other that we had decided, or we thought about, were Deep Salad.
I like deep salad.
the
Deep Salad?
Tanuki Suits.
Oh,
Yep.
the chairmans of the board.
Yeah, the board of directors.
Impro 5.
Oh, yeah, Impro 5.
Yeah, because the V would have been a 5.
These are all terrible names.
Just
Something with a
awful.
Which are
barcode. What
perfect
was the
for improvers.
barcode one?
What was that?
What was the barcode one?
That was deep salad. Yeah, it was a
Yeah.
barcode with a head of lettuce on it. It was actually a really neat, simple
Yeah.
design, but that was the barcode one.
Yeah, I loved the term deep salad, but it was just kind of like it didn't really catch on. And then at
I-
one point, we just started listing words, and then we came up with, well,
It sounds like something.
synaptic chaos is like a thing that you want people to be drawn into while they're watching it. And so we're like, why not that? And it's like, yeah, but we want to talk about how we're into theater and improv and comedy, and that we want to sell that. So okay, so are we Synaptic Chaos Improv, Synaptic Chaos Comedy? And it's like, well, why not Synaptic Chaos Theater? And I think we all kind of felt it's a little long,
It's
but
not the worst.
but it's not the worst.
No.
Yeah.
It's
And then
okay.
Dan drew a logo, and we were like, oh, that logo is
Yeah,
great.
Dan's logo
Yeah.
is so good.
And you might say that deep salad didn't really catch on, except because we hadn't actually picked a name. That was one of the first names that got put through as an idea. We were calling it deep salad
It's
until
so
we'd done the
cryptosexual.
name. And I think I still have a group name under my Facebook list that just says deep salad with the members.
Perfect.
So it was, we made that jump, and I mean, it's kind of, when we did that, we basically, then it's up to us, it's like, now we have to go around and sell ourselves.
And so we started. We kept a lot of the conventions that we went to. We went back to Anime Evolution, which one year, and then we became Cause and Effect.
Yeah, well, Anime Evolution
yeah.
stopped, and then causing it because of money and that, wow, shit, I'm not talking about that here, but
And that was the year that the first time we did what would later become the late night dub fight.
yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
that was something that we did with myself, Graham. You were there. Little Karibo was on it,
Yeah.
and Takato 101.
Yeah.
That's right, because we were like, we have improv, but what other things can we do now? We had ideas we had wanted to talk about and do before, and now we had this
Yeah.
chance where we're like, well, let's put everything that we can do now while we do a big push and start.
The only things we ever thought about doing were improv shows. Like in the 404s, was like we do improv shows, and we'll do the 99 yen challenge,
Yeah.
which was a take on the 99p challenge, which is a British radio show, which is very funny. Simon Pegg and Armando Iannucci and David Quantick and all these guys all had roles on the 99p challenge, and it was a very good show. And so we were like, well, we'll just lift the concept wholesale and we'll just do it as our own radio thing, and then we'll make it kind of the same thing and do it at all these events. It was great.
And y'all wouldn't write your scripts.
We never write our scripts until like the 16-hour drive down
No,
to
not even.
Marathon.
No, not even
No,
then.
not even
Sometimes
that.
for some of you. Also, I don't think maybe the high school shows were the best venue for those.
Not
A
always.
Dune joke is always good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're more about helping us tickle our own funny bones and maybe not always the people in the audience. But in any case, though, when we came out of that, it was like, well, we're taking 99 yen with
Yeah.
us.
Because we did.
Because
all
I
the
was
work on the
hosting
show.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were hosting it, and it's like, well, good. Cori can continue to host it, and we can continue to write our shit for this, and we'll keep doing that. And then, but part of the thing was, if we're going to compete, we need to compete with us having stuff that we can do. So I'd said, well, why don't we do a How to Improv panel, and I'll host that. And then it's like, why don't we do improv for cosplayers, and I'll host that as well. And we can start picking up other things. And you can't. We did the thing at Cause and Effect where it was let's redub clips of stuff.
Yeah, it was Digital Dolphin who came up with the idea for this. and-
Exactly. And so
Oh,
we were
yeah.
like, well, let's just steal that wholesale.
I talked.
Yeah, and he was chill with it, as my understanding. And so it was like, we need to adapt it into something. What are we going to call it? And I said, Late Night Dub Fight. And
Yes.
you were like, yeah, fine.
Sounds good. And we.
Then you went and wrote a
And then
song.
you
Yes.
laid down the tracks.
Dan and I, in 30 minutes before our first show, wrote the Late Night Dub Fight theme on my iPad in GarageBand.
So good.
So, but during that proto Late Night Dub Fight, that was, I believe, the convention where it was again on the UBC campus with those
Yep.
6, and we all, it is.
Yeah, we were at a party and we got invited to Desert Bus. Us two.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not you
No,
two.
no.
Yeah,
We don't go to
last thing
parties.
that happens of the night is Graham and Kathleen walking to the elevator. See you guys next year. Wait, you two totally need to come to Desert Bus.
Yep. Fuck the rest of you.
So we did, and that was Desert Bus 4, I believe.
Yeah.
Yes, it was, because that was my first craft submission before Craft Along was a thing.
And I was at home watching this go down, and I think you had even said to me, well, Beej, if you do want to come, because I wasn't working still at the time, because as you've heard, I had a fuck ton of money.
You were so jelly.
And
I was super nervous.
What did your money get you?
I didn't want to go.
Not having
Like
to
literally,
work.
you were like, I think you could probably come if you want, Beej. I can ask them. I'm like, I don't really think I want to go because I don't really know how I'd fold in with this. And maybe it's not a thing for me, and I'd feel kind of awkward because I wouldn't have a place to stay, and I don't want to spend the money and whatever. And so then Heather pulled up the auction, and we watched your blanket go for $4,200.
Yeah, about that.
$4,600.
It killed like a couple of Bothans or whatever the
Yeah.
thing was at the time.
It was the highest ranking auction. I love being able to say this every time, even though I didn't make the thing. It was the highest ranking auction they'd ever had. That brought in the most money in one go.
I think it was just for a crafted item.
Was it just crafted item?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I think it
don't know.
held
There
the
was-
record
there
for
was
the
some
highest
stuff
crafted item
that
longer
year.
as
Yeah.
well. So, but it was like, so I was super proud. I didn't even make it, but I was like, oh my god, somebody, they were like all over this thing. I'm so happy. And then we watched more of it, and I started to realize, I'm like, wow, there's lots going on, and it's just kind of a variety show, and everyone just kind of has a good time. And
They need a man with a guitar.
I know, and I said I kind of miss Ian and Cori. I would have a lot of fun being there doing it.
And I know, I knew that you and I really play off each other quite a bit.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah.
we could really take things up another notch. Like, it was fun being kazoo guy, but
Yeah, we could do some more. And so for the next, that was why Desert Bus 5, why I showed up ultimately, is because it was put out there. Well, that I think after we had the SCT Lure Barbecue in Calgary again.
during the Comic Expo in
Yeah.
the intervening year.
Exactly, is that we get to see everybody again and we get talking, and it's like, and I think Graham had said, oh yeah, Beej, no, if you want to come for Desert Bus, you can. Like, totally, that's, you're always free to come out and do that. So I was like, okay, I'm buying a ticket and I'm doing it. And I missed my flight home by 24
Maybe
hours.
maybe it was the
I had a
next
really
Desert
good
Bus.
time.
'Cause I recall you actually calling me from Desert Bus when the blanket sold.
Yeah, Desert Bus 5.
Because you made more blankets.
Yeah. You've made like 4?
I've done 4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think the next one was the Star Blanket.
But if
No, it
I've
was
done
the
if I've
mushroom
done
one.
if I've done
Mushroom.
4, then I did one for 8, 7, 6. No, 5. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It was 5.
I think it was after the first Desert Bus we did together
Yeah.
that I decided, F it, you know what? I'm moving to Victoria.
Yeah, that came as a bit of a surprise because I didn't want to move to Victoria. I shouldn't say we didn't. I didn't want to move to Victoria. because I was like, what the hell am I going to do here? Where am I going to find work? I guess this is a university, but I don't really... But then coming out to Desert Bus in November and having it rain on me, it made me realize, and it was the middle of the night because I was working the late shift by choice, right? And I was like, oh shit, it's November and it's just raining and there's no real... And the bus, like there was a little ice on one day and I'm like, the bus is having trouble going up a hill slightly, and I was kind of like, okay, so it does get cold.
Yeah. But coming up from Edmonton, where I'm literally going through, it's minus 30, there's 3 feet of ice.
Yeah.
Not snow. Ice on the roads.
And it's the worst. And you're just kind of like, why would anyone live there when they could live here?
Live in Victoria. There's
Maybe
a
I
group
maybe
of
I could
interesting
live here.
people here that I can.
Except you were still not into the idea.
Yeah, but I was like, oh yeah, I could live there, but I don't really know.
'Cause I remember this very clearly. Ian was like, I'm going to move to Victoria. And then we were like, maybe we should move to Victoria because Ian wants to move to Victoria.
And then our good friends Dan and Manny, they thought, well, seems like a nice place.
Well, they were just like, oh, everyone's gonna move out.
And so so I was like,
Victoria.
the thing is like, no, we'll probably end up moving to Calgary because if we're gonna if I'm gonna get a job and we're gonna have a kid and buy a house and do the whole thing, then that's something that obviously move to Victoria. It's expensive. Why don't we'll live in Calgary and it'll be fine, and maybe we'll move down like a few years later. Yeah. But we'll see.
Or just see them on, Desert Bus and conventions.
And
we'll
do
still
conventions out on the coast, right? It'll be fine.
Yeah, but Ian didn't move right away. He talked about it.
I wanted to be responsible with my move.
But I was in school.
And
a new job.
Cori was in school. Yeah. And I was still in school.
Yeah, and I was doing almost nothing. And,
were...
and then all of a sudden, Dan and Manny said, oh, we're moving to Victoria. I'm like, why? It's like, well, Ian was talking about it, so we got thinking about it, and then Dan was working very happily in his job, working for Getty Images, and then he got let go because they ended up moving. He was working on the Time Magazine website. His team was responsible for that entire website, and they ended up moving that to people in New York. He lost his job, and he said, what the fuck am I going to do now? And his old boss got a hold of him and said, hey, Dan, if you're interested, because his old boss is the one who basically sold iStock Photo, which is what Dan worked for, to Getty Images. He's like, Dan, if you want to work with me again, we can do that. I got some ideas for some new projects. And Dan's like, I just lost my job. Maybe I should look into this. And so they talked about it and talked about it and talked about it. And they're like, oh, come down to LA. And Dan's like, oh, maybe. We were thinking of Victoria. And so his boss is like, oh, that's cool. Actually, my wife wants to go back to Victoria. She's from there originally. So they went to Victoria before any of us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then it was like, okay, so Dan and Manny have moved to Victoria. I finished school now. And Beej has gotten a job by this point too, which is like
It was a good job. But
part of the reason I think maybe he was having problems with the idea of like, let's move. And we're like, we have to move soon because I'm going crazy because I have no friends who actually live in Olds. They came to the school for the school year. They've all gone home.
I'm working 4 days a week at the municipal library, which is a fine job, but it's not going to be anything I'm going to make more and more money at. I have to move out to a larger market.
You were very... I think just because you'd finally gotten a job, I
was kind of loath to give it up.
You didn't want to really give it up. And we talked about other places we could move. I didn't want to move to Calgary. You didn't really want to move to Calgary.
Not really, no.
Especially after Dan and Manny left. And then we talked about maybe going back to Edmonton, and it was like, well, you didn't really want to go back to Edmonton again.
Yeah.
If you could help it.
Especially not St. Albert.
Yeah.
And then, so it was like, where should we move? And we're like, we should move to Victoria. Everybody's going to go there. That could be fun.
And I was like, and even if Victoria doesn't work out, we can maybe move to Vancouver. It's a larger market. We can live there.
You were not sold on the idea.
Yeah, but I knew that among our many options, staying in Olds was not an option. Calgary was not the best option. And Edmonton was not looking like an option I wanted to exercise.
Yeah. And I
So
kept
it's
pushing
like,
for Victoria.
I guess
like,
moving to the
hey,
coast.
our friends are moving to Victoria. We should go move to Victoria Beach.
So we
And
packed
then-
up all our gear and we went.
Yeah.
Yep.
And just left us alone with our albatross.
Yep.
So that
Yeah.
meant another year and a half of me trying to find work in Victoria remotely, which is not easy to do.
No, it's damn near impossible to find a job here.
Damn near impossible to find a job when you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me
Yeah.
about it.
But we packed up half of our house in April. To
February.
In February.
Yeah.
Just put it in storage because I was going to paint up my place and repair everything and get it ready to rent it, to sell it.
Yeah. And we started it on the market, I think, in March.
Yep, in March. And due to many reasons of my condo board being a complete and total pile of poop, the house is unsaleable for a while.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, you know what? I can't take it anymore. I can't take the waiting. And so I'm just going to put it up for rent, and we're going to go.
Well, and it worked because you had permission too, right, Cori?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
for
to work
your-
remotely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things where they're like, you're never leaving. You're just talking about leaving.
Yeah, and it's
Well,
that's kind of what it felt like.
I mean, you did talk about moving to Victoria for quite a while.
I had to give them a heads up. I
Yeah.
was like,
I
I
know.
plan to move to Victoria.
and
in
that,
the
and
future.
that was the plan.
Yeah.
But we just could never make any headway. So I finally said, "F it, let's just make the headway." I'm not getting any younger,
Yeah.
and if life is about having a good quality of life, then just do it and figure it out later.
Yeah. And well, I mean, and coming out here,
Well, and yeah.
I mean, we didn't have a job. I didn't have a job initially to come out here, but I'm like, well, we'll live on whatever money that we still have, and I'll look for a job. And I got a job at UVic, and that translated into another job at UVic, which is now again translated itself into yet another job at UVic, because that's how term positions work in this. That's how work works in this town. Is apparently if you know people and you're in the right places, you will eventually kind of keep working in the
Yeah.
same places. It's just what happens, and. So I mean that worked out in my favor, and I'm still happy about it. It is also like upon arriving here, it was kind of like so we moved all of our stuff here. We parked the big steel box. We got like
Don't forget, we actually originally moved out to Langford, where
Yeah.
the jokes were
swear never go back.
never
there.
going back there, and
Langford's
it's,
20 minutes from.
it's a 20-minute drive.
Yeah, and it's
be
essentially it's
specific.
part of the same Capital Regional District. It's not a big deal. It's
People
like
walk
another
around here.
neighborhood.
20 minutes does not 20 not 20
Except
minutes
that it
walking.
might as well be off island.
Yeah, it might as well
Yeah.
just be like a
Well,
3-hour trip.
even
by
Esquimalt,
Yeah.
even Esquimalt is just like, oh, it's too far.
I know, right?
My arms can't reach.
It's really weird to live here because everything there's space dilation of a very weird set.
Yeah.
But the we got our CCAN here. What we ended up doing we ended up doing a con. I think we did Animathon. We did something. We did a con in Edmonton. Then we and came to the house, finished packing the CCAN,
Oh, right.
moved it out.
Oh, this was a terrible idea.
And as soon as it arrived, we then that weekend went down to
we went to PAX.
Went to PAX that weekend, I think it was, and then came back after those several days.
No wait,
or was it Anime
no
Evolution
wait.
or Cause and Effect?
We did Animathon. I think we did Animathon. We moved here within that week. We did Anime Evolution. Our CCAN had not yet arrived. By the time it arrived, it was like 2 or 3 days before PAX, and we were like, "Well, we're not unpacking that now." And then we went to PAX, and we came home. And we had unpacked.
And
all the
and
way-
we packed everything.
All the while, me whispering in your ears, "Don't mess this up."
Yeah, the entire time, and which is great because that's a callback to something that happened at Anime Evolution years prior when we had met Lur for the second time. Is that all of us were having dinner, or sorry, breakfast.
Breakfast.
And Ian looks past over my shoulder and he says, "Oh, that's Graham." Like it's like, "Oh, they showed up." Like Lur is here at.
That's
at
great. I'm
Not
so excited.
Not like, "Oh, it's Graham." Like it's more like
A little bit like that.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Anyway, we always
A little
give
bit.
Ian a hard time for that, but. And I'm like, "Where?" And he's like, "He's behind you." And I'm like, "Oh," and he's like, "No, don't look. Like, don't make this a thing." And I'm like,
You'll ruin
and,
it, Beej.
And I'm like, I said, "Yeah, okay, it'll be fine." And I got out of my chair and I turned around and I went and I sat right beside Graham at the table while he's eating, across from Tally, who's on the computer. And I'm in my regalia. You've seen me in this. I sit at the table, and Tally looks up. Graham does not. Tally looks up. She sees me sitting across while she's typing. She kind of gives me this eye, kind of like,
Who are you?
"Can I help you?" Because she's never met me before, right? And then Graham looks up as well, looks over at me and goes, "Oh, hey, Beej." I'm like, "Hey, Graham." And he goes right back to eating his food, and Tally's like, "Oh, hi." And she shakes my hand, and we say hello to each other, and she goes back to doing what she's doing. And then we have a very brief exchange, Graham and I. And Ian, by this point, has gotten up from his chair and has come over to be like, "He's
Yeah.
fucking this up, I just know
Yeah,
it."
because I was
Yep.
at the table with Ian and
Yep.
watching him stare at you like, "Why are you doing this to
He's like,
me?"
stink eye.
Yeah, it's great.
So
Because
good.
I don't give a crap about anything. It seems there are certain people that if you did that, if you fucked it up for me, I'd be really upset about probably.
Yeah.
Because I'd be like, why couldn't like Will Wheaton, right?
Oh.
Meeting Will Wheaton that one time, Heather went up to go walk up to Will Wheaton. I'm like, oh, I want to meet him, but I also don't want to be like a weird guy who didn't meet him at his table, where you're kind of supposed to be meeting people.
That's
and-
okay. I felt awkward when I did what I did.
Yeah,
to-
so she
to
went up
him.
and she says, "My husband wants to say hi to you, but he's too much of a chicken shit to do anything about it."
Yeah,
and I'm like,
then I walked away.
"Hi, Will. let's bump elbows, and we did.
Then I walked away because I was like, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah. It was super cool of you that you did.
But I mean, I don't really care about meeting Will Wheaton, which is funny because when I tell that story, everyone's like, you met Will Wheaton. I'm like, that's not the point of the story. I told you.
My husband's too cowardly to do anything about it. So you saying, don't mess this up in the back of my mind while I'm out here.
I'd forgotten that was the first time too, because it happened again just before the first desert bus when you came and I pulled you to the side.
This relationship just constant
Don't
threats.
mess this up for us.
I'm like, yeah, I know. Don't worry. Chill.
And then, just after you moved, I'm glad you're moving. Don't mess this up.
In reality, I mean, because we came out here, and after when we had really our first free weekend, I said to Heather, "All right, see ya," and I went to the office.
Yeah, that's right. You went without me for the first while.
And I said, I'll boom. And what am I going to do? Well, I'll hold a boom. They'll teach me how to hold a boom, and I'll hold a boom. It'll be fine. And I ended up sitting in on that Commodore Hustle in that opening shot where it's like, we're all here to do whatever.
Oh,
and
right.
then Graham was supposed to have Glenn there, and he was going to give Glenn something to do, and Glenn couldn't. Glenn's the guy who's the landlord here, right? So it's like, Glenn's not here, so why don't we just get Beej to sit down? It'll be funny. And we'll just give him the line that, wait, I thought this was a desert bus meeting. I don't work for you. And I get up and I leave. And then, of course, I end up booming everything. And to be completely honest, I was treating my first year here as me keeping the seat warm for you.
Oh.
So
It's true.
I knew
He didn't mess it up for you.
It's like, I know that no matter what happens, that the year that I'm here, I'm basically establishing a really good relation, so that when you guys get out here, that you'll be able to just kind of roll right into this and be like, yeah, we're all part of the same family.
So Beej started going more often. I think I came to a couple before I was kind of regular for a little bit, because I was like, I don't really want to go right away. I don't know these people. I'm going to be in the way. They are doing work. That's not going to be good. But then Beej was gone a lot. He'd be gone for like maybe feed dumps, or I don't even remember all the things that actually were being done, but he would be gone sometimes the entire weekend. He'd be gone past 6 p.m., which he said he'd be home by. And I was at home with our very scary downstairs neighbor, who I think
to say your cat.
Yeah.
Very scary downstairs cat.
and I didn't want to be there, so I was in a bad place there as well. And then I came out a few times because I was like, well, I'm going to spend time with my husband. And I come, and then I was like, oh, this is uncomfortable. This is weird. Maybe I won't go. And then I think Kathleen at one point, I went one weekend over summer time, and Kathleen was like, I really would like you to come more because I don't want to be the only girl. And I was like, oh, people do want to hang out with me.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So then I started showing up more and occasionally just doing things.
Yeah, and now
and
you're
then running
practically
away.
Full-time LT.
Yeah.
So you've done this. So you
Very
guys
proud
have
of
been
that.
here for a year.
How about yeah?
You're making your name. You're staking your claim.
Yep.
And all is well and good. And we've packed up and we've just decided we're going to move. We managed to get some people in just before PAX.
Oh, into your place.
Oh, right.
To almost sign on the
They-
line.
they-
to rent the
they
place.
were-
They had the pen in their hand over the paper.
Our house is empty, ready to go, and we go to PAX, and we have to come back because the plan was to come to PAX with everyone,
Yeah.
drive our car down, and then when PAX is over and everyone says bye, see you later, where are you going? We're going home, and to drive up to Victoria.
Yeah. To be on the
Yeah.
ferry
Yeah.
with us, essentially.
It would have been
So,
so good.
We didn't tell
Would've been
anyone about this plan
amazing.
because we had other renters possibly come in.
Yeah, there were other bites.
Yeah, and we managed to actually move without telling a soul.
And then we ran into Smalley on the ferry.
Yeah. Like, oh God, is our cover blown?
No, he didn't.
No. So we
And then
drive.
we showed up at the base. I had a Coke for Alex because I had been taunting him with these.
Because we'd been
for-
doing,
Oh, it was so good.
we'd been doing the
So
whole
great.
thing across Twitter of Alex would get a Coke with someone's name on it and then destroy it in some ridiculous fashion. So we picked up a Coke for him and said, "Hey Alex, do you want a Coke?" I'm sure he expected that because we did it the morning we left
Yeah.
too. So it was within 24 hours. I'm sure he was expecting at some point he'd
Well, I
receive a
back
tweet
posted the thing, and then he had like a few hours to respond.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and show up at the moon base and deliver him his Coke.
which was great. And if you have
he
access
was
to
streaming.
obviously to the Twitch archives, and you go back to that was that November or was that August or
No,
It was November
That was
because it was right
November.
before Desert
November
Bus because
2nd, I
our
think.
stuff was full.
yeah.
No, it was October because we stayed with you for
Right,
October.
Yeah.
October 2nd.
So there is Twitch footage of this somewhere of Cori walking into the room with the Coke for Alex, and Cam is there too.
Yes.
Yes.
And the two of them are just like,
right.
they're like, I what? And Cam's like,
No, I remember this very clearly because
and he doesn't know what to make of it. Like the two of them are just kind of like,
It's-
why are you here?
it was Cam's stream.
yeah.
And Alex was sitting in with him, and then we saw Cori and Ian show up, and they were like, yeah, we have this thing. And as we were going upstairs, Alex came out of the streaming office, and I told him to go back into the streaming office because I didn't want him to ruin the surprise.
He was confused, but he didn't have any.
No, but he
reason to
did it.
object, so yeah,
Yep.
it was good.
And so since then, we've
We've
been here.
lived here.
And that's the story of how we all came to be in Victoria
Yeah.
and work for her.
That's like, I don't know, what, 15 years of history?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
just
That's
under an
it.
hour. It's
That's about right.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else that kind of. I mean, a lot of it is.
You guys got married.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we did
that was the
that.
thing that happened.
Inside there, there's a lot of because a lot of this was we formed an improv team, and then because we were out doing stuff, just kind of right time, right place, and then you meet the right people, and then it's just kind of a you do the right things at the right times.
It's kind of it's the creator's mindset kind of too. Is that you start making things, and then you make things with other people,
yeah,
and they turn out to be things that aren't shitty.
yeah.
Well, yeah, like you make a thing, you meet other people who make a thing,
Yeah.
you start to talk about making that thing, then you start making that thing together.
Yeah.
It's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
I've said
Yeah.
the word thing a lot.
And I'm very
And it's not always like a product. It can just be like, we held this party,
Yeah.
and other people showed up, or I've got this anime club, and I made friends at this anime club, and now I've known them for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and just that whole feeling of being able to do something, like actually doing something, as opposed to just saying, like, if I hadn't said, boy oh boy, I really need to I'm going to form an anime club so that I can meet women. I would not have that entire experience of what I did up in Grand Prairie, for one thing, and then also turning around and coming home and being like, F Grand Prairie in the a-hole, I don't want to live here anymore. I'm moving back home to Edmonton, and then
I was so sad when you moved away.
I'm very sorry, and we all
No, it's better that you moved away.
yes, and for us to all kind of, I had an inkling you liked me actually.
If we'd never goofed off
No,
together,
I was
Yeah.
perfect
In
in
front
my non-likeness.
and so we kind of like just the fact that we got together at the clubs and we hung out and we did things, and it's like, because we did the stuff, because we worked at Animathon together, and because we maintained that friendship, and because we decided that we're going to keep doing this improv thing, because I couldn't have imagined that doing that would lead to me being 35 years old, sitting here recording a podcast with one of the best sketch comedy troupes on the internet. Like, it's kind of and being a member of it, right? And having a streaming show every week, and having all this fun churning out really great content.
Yeah.
And just the fact that it's like doing something can lead to you being able to do something else, can lead to being able to do something else, and it's not like the time that you spend doing that, you should be like, well, I'm trying to build to be this. It's like, why don't you just do the thing you're doing?
yeah, because you can't make a plan of it.
Yeah.
It's
No.
impossible.
Well, here's a funny thing. I was taking filming and editing in high school. I was going to go to Vancouver to take filming and editing and do that there. And then I didn't because I got scared and I tried other things instead. And now I'm filming LT all the time.
Yeah.
Wow, you're actually probably the most qualified then. You did this in school.
Yeah.
My tiny little handheld camera that cost me $500, and I was so proud that I got to buy that. Oh, I still have it.
Good camera.
I think it's broken.
I'm really. This has been a really good ride. So this is now when we do the ritual suicide, right?
No! I like
I
my
brought
life.
Kool-Aid.
Thank you.
Oh, refreshing.
It does make me. I mean, I look forward to the next 30 years.
Are we missing anything?
I'm not sure.
Like, we glossed over some stuff, but
Yeah, we did the clubs. We were in an improv troupe. We broke out of the improv troupe. You guys met. We
Doing improv.
We're still doing
Still
the
doing
improv.
it.
You all lived together. I moved down. Y'all moved away from each other.
Yeah. Doing Desert Bus was, I mean, that was really the sea change for me, is to basically do Desert Bus 5. That was what made me feel like there's so much I can be doing just in that week, that there's a lot of value in just in that. And then, of course, coming out here, the first time I came out to do, like when I was in that Commodore Hustle and just basically to boom that, I was kind of like, I hope I do whatever it is I need to do properly. Because I don't know, like maybe they don't need me here. Maybe I'm not necessary.
You read up about booming.
I did. I read up about booming because I'm like, I need to know how this is done so I can do it properly. And I know that everything here is like handled fairly slack, but it's like if I'm going to show up, I'm going to be so good at this, there's no reason to say no. And yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Did you practice?
no.
Nice that you expected to read something and be good at it.
You'd be surprised the number of things that I read and then end up being good at.
No.
No.
And on that bombshell,
Yeah. This has been the
The LRRcast.
LRRcast with
The-
SCT
our
members.
origin story.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you very much for joining us. I'm Beej.
I'm Heather.
I'm Cori.
I'm Ian.
Don't forget to check out the Patreon and the LRRst website,
Watch all our stuff on
loadingreadyrun.com.
YouTube and
They are good.
Yeah, and you can check out our stuff on synapticasttheater.synapticast.com
and
and latenightdubfight.com. And until next time.